7 o'clock. I call to order the February 10th Planning and Development Committee meeting. Would you please call the roll?
McCarty.
Here.
Foltz.
Here.
Baumgart.
Here.
Muntz.
Here.
Lencioni.
Here.
Yem.
Here.
Trilla.
Here.
Wirball.
Here.
Duskner.
Here. Here. Thank you. We have no omnibus tonight. We just have 3 items. So we'll start with item 4A. Plan Commission will hear Plan Commission recommendation to approve an amendment to special use for plan unit development for space self-storage corporate reserve PUD Lot 2.
Thank you. Good evening. This property is located at the northwest corner of West Main Street and Cardinal Drive. Applications for PUD amendment and preliminary plan have been submitted by St.Charles SS LLC, proposing a 3-story self-storage facility called Space Self-Storage. The self-storage use is permitted. However, a PUD amendment is requested to allow for an increase in building gross floor area and a parking space reduction. Plan Commission held a public hearing on December 3rd. Several residents attended and expressed concerns related to proximity of the Anthem Heights subdivision to the north. Plan Commission recommended approval by a vote of 4 to 2, subject to 4 conditions that were meant to lessen neighbor impacts, and those conditions were to rotate the building so the longer dimension is along Main Street and parking behind along Woodward, to add evergreen tree screening and an earth berm at the north end, and then to reduce lighting on the north end as much as possible. The applicant has submitted revised plans which address the Plan Commission's conditions. In addition, they've added a secondary access drive off Cardinal in order to reduce traffic on Woodward and provide fire vehicle turnaround. Driveways off Cardinal were not originally intended in this PUD. However, they are not prohibited by the PUD ordinance, but the driveway would need to be shifted south by about 15 feet in order to meet the separation needed from the intersection. So the applicant is present tonight, represented by Dennis Lindell, and he'd be happy to come up and make some comments if you'd like to hear from the applicant.
Sure. You're welcome. Hey, just state your name for the record.
All right. My name is Bob Walker. I'm with Bono Consulting. They had me doing as the site engineer since I'm a little more familiar with the different site changes that we made. So like she was talking about in her presentation there, we did rotate the building to make sure that it got further away from the building. So, all right, yeah, that's a good idea. If you can see that now it's backed up on against North Avenue or against Route 64. Oh. That helps. All right, there we go. That building previously was rotated, so the back of it was against Cardinal, so the north end of that was pretty close to the setback line from Woodward. So we rotated the building, got that setback substantially from Woodward. Along with that, we put in, since everything is set back there, we've got some landscaping berms, some fairly substantial landscaping berms along the front there to screen the property from Woodward. And then we also landscaped with evergreens along that berm to make sure that it's a 365 screen for the residents to make sure we can get that screened as well as we could. We reduced our lighting to make sure that the lighting wouldn't impact the neighbors as well to the north. We also removed some of the windows they had talked about. There were some windows on that north face of the elevation of the building that would create a kind of some light there, and plus they were a little concerned with how that was going to look from the neighbor's perspective, so we removed those as well. And yeah, the second access there, like we talked about there, we're going to have that access off of Cardinal. That'll help keep the traffic off of Woodward to keep the traffic from being as much of an impact on the neighbors. We do still need that to make that other access so we can make sure we have adequate fire protection. I guess if there's any other questions regarding how we did this, we'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. With that, are there any other comments before we come to City Council? Okay. Questions, comments?
Oh, yeah.
Bob, yeah.
So thank you for doing that and for making the adjustments. But the biggest concerns in getting residents' feedback and also the businesses, both to the east and to the west of the proposed property, just the size of the structure and being 3 stories. Is there any way to reduce that from 121,000 square feet and still make it economically feasible?
I will defer that to the guys that are building it.
Yeah, the 3 stories and the size of the building are of real concern to the residents in that area, especially them looking at Anthem Heights, and then obviously the preschool on to the west and Tractor Supply to the east. So I was just wondering if there's any way to make it a smaller footprint and still be able to do that.
Yeah, and I'm Hussein Wasim. I'm the Director of Investments with Space. The reason for the request is to provide the economies of scale to make something like this work. If you just look at some of the other storage facilities within, call it a 3 to 5 mile radius, that are similar Class A facilities, we need that little bit of extra size to provide some of the Class A premium features that we're asking for. So you're talking about all indoor storage, no outdoor storage. You're talking about full climate control. So we need that little bit of size to provide the return for our investors, unfortunately.
Well, just looking at the dimensions, it's a lot more than a little bit of size, because right now it's zoned for 75,000 square feet.
Right.
And you're looking at 121,000 plus square feet. To me, that's a pretty substantial oversize of what the property right now is set for. So that's why I'm asking the question, to make sure if there's something to do that. Like I said, the residents are concerned of the size, and definitely the size of the structure, and I guess economics you guys have looked at.
Yes.
Do we need more self-storage in the St. Charles area? Obviously, you've done the economics that says
Yes,
that would be feasible. I'm just really concerned about the size of that building and the impact on the surrounding community.
Understood. And, you know, if the Metro self-storage, if you guys are familiar with that, that's the most comparable. That's about 100,000 gross square feet, and that was built in 17. So if you look at inflation and the cost of interest rates, so when you have interest rates go up, essentially the rate of return for our investors goes up and the cost of debt goes up. So we're trying to make it as efficient as possible. If we could have done that, we would have. But I promise you that.
Thank you, Chairman Lencioni. I have a couple questions. First of all, you mentioned a resident meeting. How did that meeting go? Were you guys there? Was the petitioner there, residents there? I'm just curious as to how the resident meetings went, or?
Sure. I'll let you speak to that. Yeah, I facilitated a meeting between the developers and a group representing the neighborhood.
Yeah, I think, meetings like that are obviously a very important part of our functioning government. So really glad that those were there, and we had good conversation, and we heard them. And I think from our perspective, it's about hearing them out, making the changes that we can make economically. And I think from their perspective, it was, hey, this is something that is a commercial use, and this is not something that we would ideally like. But from our perspective, you're coming off of 64. It's a commercial corridor. It's a state highway. I think a commercial facility like this, which is very low traffic, would provide a good buffer.
So let me add to that. I was facilitating and listening, and there was. In fact, I have one thing that I want to throw back to staff after, because there was it was a really cordial conversation, but there was no way to get to a meeting of the minds. The residents were, very concerned, because there's no transitional neighborhood. There's not. It's single family without multifamily, abutting this very heavy commercial use, and so. Their idea was, well, we knew that this was a commercial use, but we didn't think that there would be anything that intense. There was a little bit, and I guess with this, Ellen or Russ jumping in, because there was a confusion whether the difference was from 121,000 square feet to 75, which is a very serious departure, or if it was 15%. There was a little bit of interplay between the PUD and the underlying zoning.
Yeah, I think it would be both. There's like that overall gross floor area allowance for the entire PUD, and this building would exceed that, as well as also a separate requirement for 75,000 per building. So it's kind of exceeding both of those items.
Yeah. So with that, because I know we were talking about, you were talking about, well, we'd be willing to, meet, 15% to get that. It would be a different building, but the standard is way tighter than that. And they were concerned because as they moved in, they had the expectation of a certain intensity, and this is significantly higher than the intensity. It was a great conversation, and I, you know, this is a great development group, and I'd love to find a place in the city, but they were very, they were staunchly opposed, and I got to tell you, I thought that they have pretty good arguments, that it's just very intense use right next to single-family residential neighborhood.
Can I ask another question, please?
Yeah.
In regards to the berm and the pine trees, what's the overall height of the building gonna be? 40 feet?
I'm not the architect, but I think I have it written down, so.
But I also believe that the height is within acceptable.
Okay.
40 feet, yeah.
The height is by right. It's just the gross floor area that is a big departure, which just makes it way more massive.
No, I'm curious as to why the planning commission had them do the berm and the pine trees then, like, what was the justification for that? You know?
The Plan Commission felt that those items would just soften the look, the appearance of the building. There'd be some greenery and landscaping to not block the building, but just soften at eye level, or they were trying to come up with ways to lessen the impacts, not completely negate them. But those items were two things that they came up with.
And I would say one thing, you know, they talk about the intensity of the building, you know, this is being a low-use building. It's not like there's 200 people coming here every day, you know, there might be a dozen people show up on a day, and that's a busy day for self-storage.
Intensity could, from a planning perspective, could be building massing, it could be traffic, a lot of those things come in. And anytime that you take the zoning and you increase on any of those, it's just a way to talk about it.
Yep.
It's an increase in intensity of use. Come on up, Hussein, I asked you, you spoke with us too. Could you provide your name for the record? Anybody who speaks, just provide your name.
I'm Hussein Wasim. I live 30 minutes away in Elmhurst. So.
Awesome, thank you. Please report.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dennis Lindell and Tessitore, attorneys for the petitioner. Thank you for your time. Just a couple things just to bring up. You know, one of the things was that I just want to make sure everybody understands that the traffic generated by this storage center is very nominal. You know, most of the rentals are done online, so it's not back like in the old days when everybody's coming to the facility to sign up leases. They only usually come once or twice, load their stuff in. They might come every 4 months later, check in on it. I think they're 11-month leases. And so CubeSmart, which is a national warehouse manager, you know, a storage center manager, you know, we have a letter in the petition which shows that, you know, on average, I mean, you're looking at no more than, 30 customers a month on average.
Yeah, about one a day.
Yeah. So the traffic is very nominal, and that's something to take into consideration because a lot of these other uses, and I mentioned this at the Planning Commission, that are permitted as of right under the BC Community District, under the PUD, are, you know, gas stations, taverns, theaters. You're talking about types of uses that can come in. They wouldn't even need to seek a variance or a PUD amendment. They would just come in as of right, and then they would come in with a site plan review, and that's it. And there's nothing that anybody can really do. And neighbors there's nothing nobody can do with that. And so we feel that our use is you know, it's actually conducive with the surrounding neighborhood because low traffic, and you know, it's a type of, it's 5 people, you know, 5 to 30 people a month that are there. And there's no outside storage, by the way. A lot of these other storage centers have outside storage, and they've got U-Haul trucks burning through a neighborhood, and I understand those concerns with neighbors, but you don't have that here.
Understood. Thank you. And I will say, I've gotten the opportunity to work with Hussein quite a bit, and you guys are a class operation too. I mean, I can absolutely say that. Alderman Bachner.
So this can be for anybody. You started to go down this path, but why what's appealing about this particular site for this project?
So the 3-mile radius in the city of St. Charles has below state and national averages for what's currently available in self-storage. Again, we're not building for today St. Charles, for 4 years from now St. Charles. That's the goal for a development like this. So you're trending with your population growth to a point in the developments that are coming in where these facilities become a necessary part of the community.
Are there any alternative sites than this one that still meet that criteria for being in that radius? Or is this the only one that meets those?
This is the best site. There are other sites, but they don't fit as well.
Alderman Stokes.
Thank you. I know you're talking about what other businesses can come in there without any variances. I get it, but we're talking about your particular project. Everything about the project sounds good except the square footage. Just what, 60-odd% increase from what's allowed?
On a per site basis?
Yeah, we're looking at from 121 for 458 to 75,000. That's almost 50,000 square foot more than what's allowed. That's not a little adjustment. That's just, I mean, I'd have a heck of a time voting yes on this project. It's just too big for that area.
I would say that if we were to build a 75,000 square foot storage facility, we would need to have an outdoor storage component. That's not something that we do. We do Class A, fully enclosed indoor self-storage. And from our perspective, the 3-site kind of PUD, that 3-site bundle, that gross square footage, that's the way we read it, was the gross square footage of the 3 sites combined. We were only, minimally off of that. So that was our interpretation, and, clarification from y'all would be,
where did that interpretation come from? Can you answer that question? They're saying that they're interpreting it differently. Isn't that what I heard? That they're interpreting a little bit different than what I'm looking at, 75,000.
The PUD ordinance dictates the total for the entire PUD, and then the underlying zoning has an additional requirement of per building gross floor area, which I don't think is reiterated in the PUD ordinance, but it applies because it's part of the underlying zoning.
So that's what our ordinance states.
Right.
That it can't be bigger than 75,000 square feet, correct?
Right.
Okay. So going by what our ordinance states, I don't know about your interpretation of it, but ordinance states that it can't be more than 75,000 square feet. If you can reduce that, I'm not saying we can't make some flexibility here, but not at 50,000 square foot more. That's not going to work for me, at least. So, thank you.
Alderman Bessler.
Just a couple quick notes. I'm in favor of the use. I think the use is spot on for that area. At the same time, parking, minimal parking, after Hussein and I spoke as well, all this is going to be indoors, so that's where everybody's going to park. And I've just cleaned out the storage unit we had on the far east side, and I didn't go down there that much, and there was never anybody down there. However, for all of us here on this committee or as council members, at least for me, this is one of those moments where we understand we're having all these questions and comments why we have, certain requirements in place. So we're not only talking about expanding from 75,000 and beyond, we're looking at something that's going to turn into more and more and more mass. So, as you're probably hearing a little bit about mass today, the direction that I would say is just to look to decrease that mass size as you can, because it's not even about footage anymore. It's about overall height, mass, and what it's going to do to the surrounding area, in my opinion.
Understood. And we hear you guys loud and clear. And I think one of the things we did was when we rotated the building, we reduced the visual appearance of the height by about 8 feet. So if there's changes like that we can make, we're all ears.
Alderman Long.
Thank you so much for this. I did want to recognize that in reading through this and talking to people on Plan Commission, listening to that meeting, it appears you really did take the feedback of residents and of staff and everything that you heard. So I appreciate that you did do that. I'm curious if is there a benefit to you for being on a main street? And I ask that only because it doesn't seem like that's the type of business that you need to be seen on a main road like you would maybe a convenience store or a restaurant or something like that, where this would be something you would search for online as opposed to like, oh, there's self-storage, I need to pull off the road. So I'm just curious why the need to be there. And I do know we have other open parcels throughout the city, like in our industrial area or other parts where it wouldn't necessarily be right up against some of our residential. So I'm just curious from your perspective if you could help me understand that.
It's just about traffic and access to traffic. So ideally we'd be, one step behind the main road. That's typically a site that we can fit into. If it's in a hot lot or next to a highway, we can make it work. It's just about within the 3 mile. That's the key. So within the ideal 3 mile within this area of St. Charles, this particular site fits that really well. If we were, call it about 800 feet one way or the other, it wouldn't matter. But when we start to go 1 mile the other way, 1 mile the other, the math starts to change. But we're running through sites in St. Charles. I think we ran through about 8 different sites before picking this one. So we're all ears to different sites within this 1 mile.
Okay, thank you so much.
Of course.
Alderman Rubel.
Okay, so thank you for your presentation. So just a couple questions or comments. First of all, I don't have an issue with the use. I'm fine with the use. I think it's low impact, low traffic, low parking. As you said, maybe once a month, twice a month, somebody will come there. My question for you is, I don't know that much about storage facilities. Can you go partially underground, sink it a little bit to bring the height down? Is that an option to get it underground and you keep the same square footage, but you go under a little bit? So you maintain the same number of storage units, but you go underneath and you reduce the height of the building. I don't know if that's possible.
Sure. My name is Shreyas Patel. I'm the president of Space Self-Storage. To answer your question, anything can be done. We can build any type of building, but as we do commercial structures, maybe Bob can speak to the engineering of it, engineering of the building completely changes. The cost exponentially skyrockets. It's building a house on slab or building it with a basement, or building on podium compared to building with a basement. It changes the dynamics wholeheartedly. And I also wanted to mention, from a location perspective, we're also very cognizant of the users. The users are those in the community. If I want to go pick up groceries, drop the Christmas tree off, pick something up, we want to be part of it, and it's difficult for folks sometimes to understand that it is a need and a use that we all access on a day-to-day basis. I have 2 units myself that I rent, and I would rather have it in an area that I know I can drive by, or I'm, relatively regularly driving by to access.
So economically, it may not make sense for you to do that? Okay.
Correct.
And then even the way it's situated, I know you and I appreciate you making those changes. I'm not a fan of having a 3-story building right up against Main Street like it's kind of a tunnel effect as you're going down, and I understand why it was moved. I also don't understand why they would have, if they're trying to reduce parking on Woodward, why would they have the in and out there? Why not rotate it, have the back of it face Tractor Supply, and your parking coming in and out of Cardinal, you loop it there to get the fire trucks. I don't know if that's possible or not, but overall, the square footage is just too big for me, in my opinion. If you can reduce it, I'm very open to it. If you can sink it underground and get the height down, I'm very open to it, but I know economics plays a role in that for you, so thank you.
Okay. With that, I'm looking for a motion, approval, denial, or motion to continue.
I'll make the motion to deny the recommendation.
I've got a motion
Second.
and a second. Would you please call the roll?
Folks,
No.
Baumgart,
Wait, well, hold on.
Motion to deny. Motion.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, to deny. Yes. Yes.
no, I'm sorry, Folkson is
Yes. Yes. Sorry. Yes.
Muntz,
Yes.
Gem,
Yes.
Trilla,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Fessner,
Yes.
Weber,
No.
Folkaitis.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is to deny, so we're settled for now. But please work with Derek. We would love to have you guys in St. Charles. You're a terrific group. It just looks like this doesn't fit how it is. But if we can be helpful, please let us know.
Yep. Well, thank you for that. Like
Thank you.
everybody said, the purpose looks great. We just got to find another place to do it. If it's available in your 3-mile radius, would be wonderful. So thank you all for your presentation.
Whatever we can do to help you come to town.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, moving on. Let me get back to our agenda.
Item B.
Yes, we are, item 4B, recommendation to approve a minor change to PUD, Carriage Oak, 1500 South 14th Street, Carriage Oak PUD.
Yes, this application for minor change has been submitted by Richard Birdie, proposing exterior changes to Carriage Oak Senior Living on South 14th Street. They're proposing to remove the prefab entry canopy and constructing a new permanent canopy over the entrance, and also a new monument sign and reconstruction of landscaping. The proposal complies with the Carriage Oaks PUD and underlying zoning ordinance, so staff recommends approval.
Motion to approve?
Second. Motion by Munn, second by Petrella. Please call the roll.
Folks,
Yes.
Baumgart,
Yes.
Munn,
Yes.
Gem,
Yes.
Petrilla,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Fester,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Kulkaitis.
Yes.
That passes.
Thank you.
Moving on, 4C, recommendation to approve plat easement grant for Nicor natural gas line through Langham Park. Also,
Yes, good evening. Nicor Gas is planning to install a new regional gas main crossing under the Fox River. And this alignment will be through Langham Park on the east side and through Mount St. Mary's Park on the west side. Nicor has worked for several years with the Army Corps of Engineers, the Park District, and the city to plan and design this gas main. Nicor has now received necessary approvals from the Army Corps of Engineers for that portion that will be underneath the river, and from the Park District for the portion through Mount St. Mary's Park. So Nicor is seeking an easement from the city for the portion that would run through Langham Park, which is city-owned property. City staff have reviewed the proposed alignment and easement, and Nicor has accommodated all of the requirements from staff. The proposed alignment through Langham Park is preferred over installing this type of regional gas main through right-of-way, where you're likely to encounter a number of utility conflicts for the construction. So the gas line will be directionally bored, so there will be minimal impacts to the Langham Park site, including no impacts to trees or any of the park improvements that are currently there. Work is proposed for this spring, and Nicor will be present on the site for about 2 weeks during the installation. And with that, staff's recommending approval.
One.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, you said this will be done in the spring, but I know with Langham and the Park District, they get their softball program rolling through there and kids playing sports. How will this impact those seasons moving forward?
Yeah, so the staging area for this work will be outside of the area that has park improvement, so the park will remain accessible and open through the season.
And no impact on with the kids there or anything like that? No dangers with them?
No, because they'll have a relatively small footprint where they set up to do the directional boring.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just, obviously I support this, known about this project for several years, but, can you, in the city, work with Nicor to ensure that, I mean, it's right near, just south of the neighborhood there, that appropriate communication, outreach, what have you, exists with that particular neighborhood? I mean, you see a large number of gas vehicles, people think things are going, something's going down,
yes.
So I think that's important, so.
Yes, we'll address that.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, I think my question is similar to that with less knowledge behind it, because then David's more knowledgeable. What kind of information is going to be shared with residents about this project as far as like general safety? Like, is there any kind of concern for this, A, being installed in the neighborhood, and B, just being in that park for people that are now using that park, and then also just it being so close to a neighborhood? I guess that would be something that I would want to make sure we have as available information.
Yes, yeah, we can address that in the communication.
Okay.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion by Wirball, second by Petrella. Please call the roll.
Folks,
Yes.
Baumgart,
Yes.
Munn,
Yes.
Gem,
Yes.
Petrilla,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Fester,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Kulkaitis.
Yes.
Fantastic, thank you. And with that, done with business, is there any public comment tonight? Seeing none, staff comment? Anything else from the committee? Okay, seeing none, we have no additional items, no executive session. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Gem, second by Petrella. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.